Hello everyone, and thank you for coming to today's tour of Hearst Castle. I'm so happy you could make it all the way out here to San Simeon in beautiful California. While most of you probably know why you are here, because you bought a ticket, I will quickly remind those who don't. Today's tour of Hearst Castle is special because we will be focusing on its architect, Julia Morgan. Our tour includes 3 places: the main building on the property, Casa Grande, the Refectory, and finally the Roman pool. Julia Morgan was the perfect person to design Hearst Castle. She was a unique modern architect and boomed in popularity because she utilized modern architectural philosophies and concepts and applied them to historic architectural styles. Hearst Castle is visually historic, but many of the details and materials in its creation are completely modern. Julia Morgan is special to modern architecture because she's able to create a beautiful mixture of history and modernity in Hearst Castle. Overall, this is why clients came to her, for her unique ability to blend style with modern technology. Before we head into our first tour stop, I would like to give you some background on Julia Morgan, Hearst Castle, and its patron, William Randolph Hearst. Julia Morgan was born in San Francisco in 1872. She got a degree in civil engineering from the University of California, Berkeley. She chose this path because there was no architecture program at the time. After she got her degree, she went on to attend the prestigious École des Beaux-Arts in Paris. However, when she first arrived in Paris, the school didn't allow women to attend, and wouldn't until 3 years later. Eventually, after 3 failed attempts, she passed the admission exam and became the first woman to enroll in the architecture program. Morgan finally received her degree in 1902, being the first woman to do so. After she returned to the States and got her California architecture license in 1904, Morgan opened her own practice and became somewhat known for her use of reinforced concrete. This was important because after the 1906 Great San Francisco earthquake, there was a big demand for architects with knowledge on seismic construction, and reinforced concrete was very important for structural integrity. Morgan designed over 700 buildings in her career, and her most famous was Hearst Castle. She passed away in 1957. Half a century after her death, Morgan was awarded the American Institute of Architects Gold Medal, being the first woman to win. Overall, Julia Morgan's life was filled with accomplishments, and I will now give you some background on perhaps her most famous, Hearst Castle. Hearst Castle is the main building complex we are in now. It sits on San Simeon, which is the name of the entire estate, totaling 250,000 acres of land. The estate was owned by the publishing tycoon William Randolph Hearst. Hearst was born in San Francisco in 1863. The family was very wealthy and left Hearst with the entire San Simeon estate. Hearst wanted to make a small bungalow on top of the hill on his property, but over time his ideas spiraled into the massive estate you see here today. Julia Morgan had worked quite a bit with Hearst's mother, so she was an obvious choice for the job. Construction on the estate began in 1919 and continued until 1947, when Hearst left his castle for the last time due to health issues. Hearst was an avid art and antiquity collector, and the castle served as his private museum, saying, "I see no reason why the ranch should not be a museum of the best things I can secure." The estate also featured 3 massive guest houses, 127 acres of gardens, a private zoo, horse ranch, landing strip, accompanying airplane hangar, and a servants' village, and a lot more. Hearst died in 1951, leaving the castle in limbo. It was opened to the public as a museum in 1958 and now sees 1.5 million visitors per year, including you. We will now begin the physical part of our tour, and we will start right here at Casa Grande. As you can tell, Casa Grande is massive, totaling 68,500 square feet. Inside, there are 115 rooms, including 38 bedrooms, 42 bathrooms, 30 fireplaces, and 14 sitting rooms. Casa Grande's construction began in 1922 and continued steadily until 1937. Then, because of World War II, construction completely stopped because they couldn't get the required materials. Construction began again after the war and lasted for 2 years. Throughout construction, Hearst changed his mind on several aspects of the building, which he was known to do. For instance, Hearst decided that the castle needed 2 more wings in the back, and later he literally lifted the roof up so a 3rd story could be added. In the end, with its 3 stories, Hearst Castle rises up 137 feet at its peak and completely dwarfs everything around. That's the background on Casa Grande. Let's now cover the unique architectural style of the buildings at San Simeon. When Hearst first approached Morgan, he, quote, wished for something a little different from what other people were doing in California, end quote. At the time, mission style was very popular. Morgan and Hearst collaborated when deciding how to design the castle. Eventually, they settled on a mix of Spanish colonial revival and Mediterranean revival. Casa Grande looks a lot like a Spanish cathedral with its tall bell towers, white walls, and red tile roofs. Morgan and Hearst took their inspirations even more literally in places. The design for the facade of the entryway was directly taken from a 1917 volume of Architecture in Southern Spain. The book showed 2 things which Morgan decided to combine: Ronda Towers and the Sevilla doorway. She also incorporated bell towers on the front of the building, which 10 years later, Hearst wanted redesigned to incorporate a carillon, or a set of stationary bells. For the redesign, Morgan was influenced by the Ronda Cathedral. The sharp finials were directly inspired by this cathedral. The exterior style of Casa Grande really shows Julia Morgan's talent to innovate on historic styles. The exterior of Casa Grande is not purely historical, though. Morgan, being the innovator she was, chose to use modern materials to create her vision at San Simeon. The main material I want you to notice is her use of reinforced concrete. The walls are made of concrete, which was quite difficult in that era of primitive concrete construction. In order to get the necessary ingredients for cement, local materials were used. Rock from on-site was used in the foundation and for the cement base. Sand from a nearby beach was also used. If they needed a finer grade, white sand from Monterey was brought in. This was before premix and concrete pumps, so the cement mixture was spun by hand, then put into wheelbarrows and carted over to the pouring site. The building crews poured concrete almost continuously for 2 years just to finish the first 2 floors of Casa Grande. This lengthy process and Hearst's constant design changes were big reasons why Hearst Castle took so long to build. Overall, Julia Morgan was extremely talented, managing redesigns for Hearst and mixing history and modern technology. In Casa Grande, she did this through taking direct inspiration from historic buildings while building with modern materials like reinforced concrete. We will now head inside Casa Grande to our second stop of the tour, the Refectory. This room is the only dining room in the entire estate, so it had to be grand. The banners and Gothic architectural motifs add a middle-aged inspiration. This is very intentional because Hearst wanted to feel like a king at his dinner parties. Can you tell that everything in the room is drawing your eye upwards? This creates the illusion that the room is much taller than it actually is. Now that you're looking up, notice the 16th century carved wood Italian ceiling. Many rooms all over the property have these ceilings, which were actually taken directly from castles and monasteries in Europe. These ceilings did not always fit perfectly in their new home, so talented craftspeople recreated portions of the antique ceiling to fill in the excess space of the new, larger room. This room is exemplary in showing Julia Morgan's ability to work with what she is given. She's able to take a historic ceiling and create an entire room around it. Finally, we are going to leave Casa Grande and head down to the indoor Roman pool. This pool took 8 years to build. As we enter, I want you to notice the beautifully ornate tilework and the overall feel of the space. Morgan added 8 rough copies of ancient statues to make a visitor feel more immersed in the theme of an ancient Roman bathhouse. I want to draw your attention to the beautiful mosaic tiles in the room. The marine creatures you see were common motifs in ancient Roman baths. The tiles were created in Italy, and the most eye-catching are filled with 22-karat hammered gold and Venetian glass. After the tiles were made, they were then shipped to a warehouse in San Francisco, where they were cut and the mosaic was created. The entire process highlights the global aspect of the construction of this room. Finally, we will talk about the technological innovations Morgan made in the Roman pool. She used an oil-burning heating system to keep the pool at a comfortable temperature. Because of Morgan's engineering background, she was able to create a unique ventilation system for the space. The windows are also operable, making ventilating the chemicals in the pool easier. Overall, the Roman pool shows off Julia Morgan's skill at using worldly materials, craftsmen, and historic inspirations. To conclude this tour, I want to summarize what you learned and saw today. Julia Morgan was a very talented modern architect because of her ability to combine history and modernity. In Hearst Castle, she shows off her talents of mixing architectural styles at Casa Grande. Using reinforced concrete allowed buildings to be stronger than ever before. The Refectory had its historic ceiling and medieval inspiration, and finally, the Roman pool used materials and craftsmen from all around the world, along with its direct historic inspirations. Overall, Julia Morgan was a master of her time and made waves in the industry by not conforming to the popular definition of modern architecture. Thank you all so much for coming to this tour of Hearst Castle and its architect Julia Morgan, and have a great rest of your day.